Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Nettles. I am a horror author usually. I have 11 short stories, flash fictions, drabbles, a mix of those published, 11 more on submission. So that's me, my little credentials. And today I'm going to teach you my personal take on how to write a flash fiction. So flash fiction is usually between 500 words to 1,000 words for most publications that are looking to accept flash fictions. Some of them will be a little bit more, like 1,200 words. Some will be shorter, like 300 words will be acceptable. So somewhere in that range. Now there are many different genres that are done in flash fiction. Like you have sci-fi and horror and romance. Basically anything you can write a novel about, you can write a flash fiction about. So I have made a list of 10 steps that I do to write flash fiction. So a lot of these have sub-steps, so this may be a little long, but bear with me. Step number 1, read flash fiction. So you can find them online for free a lot of times. There are anthologies published of them a lot of places. I personally have one that is published for free. I'll have it linked in the description box below. That one is Fairy Godmother. So it is about a girl who is haunted by a fairy godmother, eventually gives in and makes a wish, comes to find out that the price of the wish is bone. So fun times. But yeah, read flash. Find out what kinds of flash you like, what styles, what sentence structures you like, what types of endings you like. Read through them. One thing I like to study is, are the endings of the flashes satisfactory? Do they resonate for me? Do they feel unearned? Do they feel cheap? Or do they feel like, wham, that is amazing? So that is one way that I can learn to do better flash, is to read more flash, to see what I like, and the mirroring opening and ending images can be very potent. Things like that. Just study the different techniques. Step number 2 is to get a prompt. There are many different prompts out there. I personally like to write to anthologies that have specific themes for the anthology, and that will be my prompt. A lot of times when I write with friends online, we will have an image or a painting that will be the prompt. Sometimes it will be like Flash Fiction Live with Chandra and Natalie Locke, where the prompt is a sentence, and then there are also 10 words that you must incorporate into your story. So extra challenging. Those are very fun to help you stretch. Sometimes in the prompts you may also have a challenge to write from a specific point of view, write in a specific tense, or in a genre that you do not normally write in. So this past weekend I did the challenge to write a romance flash fiction, and that was a great deal of fun. So sometimes people will challenge themselves to write in first point of view when they are normally a third point of view writer, or to write in past tense when they usually write in present. Just mix it up. You're only doing it for a little flash piece, so experiment. Have fun. Some prompts will also have you incorporate a specific mood shift in a character. When I did the prompts for National Hippo Day with Megan McCarthy, one of the prompts was that hippos can change emotion rapidly. So write a piece where your character will change emotion rapidly. So that was great fun. Step number 3, stare at your prompt for a minute. Usually no more than a whole minute, but just stare at it, see if there's any obvious starting points, if there's any obvious uses for the words that you must incorporate in your story if you're doing those. Think about if there are any creative ways you could incorporate those words into the story to subverse their normal meaning. So that can be great fun. So just brainstorm for a little bit in your head and just see the vague inklings of a starting point, because that's all you need is a place to start. Step number 4 that I do is I set a timer for 30 minutes, or sometimes if I'm writing with friends, we'll set a timer for 20 minutes, and then we'll take a little bit of a break and discuss how it's going, and then we'll take a second sprint for 20 minutes. So just depends, are you doing it on your own, or do you need that little bit of a break to sit there and process what you've just done before you continue? I found both works fairly well, but if I'm just doing it in one shot, I don't break my concentration and I just keep going, go with the flow. If I do break it up, it can help me see a different path to take halfway through. So pick your poison. Another thing that I do sometimes is I will pick a timer that has a specific image in it that will help to facilitate the prompt. So when I was writing a horror piece, it was about a gothic mansion, and I found an ambient music video that had an image of this withered tree that was reaching out, and then the manor in the background, and that tree was a big inspiration for my piece. So that wasn't particularly in the timer. So sometimes I will pick a silent timer that has an alarm at the end, and then have that ambient video up in another tab so that I can watch it in the background as I type, just listen to it. It could be either like ambient noise for the specific setting that you are writing about. It could be a coffee shop just to get you in the writing mood, depending on you. It could be specific music to get you in a specific atmosphere. So sometimes it will be Lovecraftian ambient music that I will listen to as I dive into my cosmic horrors. That's great fun. Sometimes it could be more romantic music if you are wanting to do more romancy kind of short stories. So pick your poison, go with it. You can write in complete silence if that's what you need. It's up to you. You can try one story with noise and music, try one without. These usually only take up to half an hour to write, so it's not that much of a investment to try and sit down and experiment how you like it, because it's a quick turnaround. Step number 5, write it. This one has a lot of subpoints, so let me explain. So start writing with the first main character that comes to mind. They don't have to be fully fleshed out, just a vague inkling of some type of creature, human, dog, whatever is your main character. Just start with a vague inkling and just go for it. Don't overthink it. If you're halfway through and you come up with a different, more interesting main character, file that away, write that one next. Finish this one first. The opening line of your flash fiction will set your tone. It will set a promise of this is the type of story that you are getting into, and can be very important. Sometimes I will stuff as many of those must-use words from the prompt into my first sentence just to get them out of the way. So it just depends on your style. For my first sentences, I love to introduce my main character's inner thoughts, usually, of like, this is the kind of character that is going to be telling this story. Here's how they see the world, and maybe I will get into a little bit of setting of here's where they're at. So just like a promise of this type of character, or this scenario, or this genre. Just make a promise that you will stick to. If you don't like it, you can always edit it later, but I like to have the promise of this is what we're delving into and there's no going back for the next half hour. So subpoint C is play with your reader. So if you are writing a reminiscent piece of this is the lovely little seaside town that I grew up in, and these are the different types of people, and then halfway through, switch genre, put it on its head, switch it to horror, switch it to something. and recontextualize it. So that's always really fun, is switching genre halfway through. Usually this happens at like the 350, 400 word mark, where I will switch genre if I'm going that route, if I'm not just doing a pure horror, because horror is my life. You can also set up the world to behave in a specific way, and then at the end, break it and show that the world wasn't as expected. That can be great fun. It can be that like, oh, it's such a wonderful new little life in this house, and then, oh, it was witness protection, and nope, they just got shot. So, just recontextualizing things. That one was from a how to write flash fiction video I was watching. They were reading their own piece, and I thought that was a really cool ending. One of mine is a Lovecraftian monster calls out of the sky into a well, and the prism of the imagination of my main character's mind shatters, and they realize that all these anthropomorphic creature characters that were in the town were actually normal people, and their life is now mundane, and they hate it. So like, they lose their mind because their world is not as creative and fanciful and whimsical as they thought it was. So yeah, set it up one way, break it. Another thing I love to do is build up hope and then tear it away at the last second. So one of my pieces is somebody trapped in a car that is going through a car compactor at a junkyard. And so somebody tied them up, put them in the trunk, dropped the car off to be demolished. And so the whole time they are trapped in this trunk, they're like, oh no, oh my gosh, what is that noise? What is going on? Because they wake up from being knocked out or drugged or something. They come to in the trunk of the car. And as things start to move along and they get tossed and bounced around, the trunk of the car opens and they can see freedom. And they are about to get out, and then whoosh, the lid crashes down and they are all compacted and the car runs red. So give them hope and then tear it away. It's so much fun. So when you're writing, it's important to set the status quo really fast in like a sentence or two, and then race along to the finale. Get to the good stuff. The reason why people read stories usually is for the grand finale. So I love stories that just have a little bit of setup and are mostly finale, or are all set up and then the finale is like just the recontextualization and the whole thing means something different. So that's really fun too. It makes you read it twice. So curtail your story to fit within the time limit that you have with your timer going. I do that a lot. I will be pantsing my way through. I do not plot these out. I pants every flash that I've written. And so I will be writing and coming up with things on the fly, and then I'll see that there's only like 7 minutes left and it's like, oh dang, I gotta wrap this up. And so I will have to think, how can I end this as dramatically as possible and just shift gear and take it crazy and end it on a bang as fast as I can, because I'm out of time. The reader is out of attention span. This needs to be as punchy as I can make it. So keep it within the time limit, and that will force you to think as fast as you can and not be able to have decision paralysis. You just gotta pick one and run with it because the timer is running out. If you have decision paralysis, my way of doing this may not work for you, but I love the timer running down and forcing me to make changes, forcing me to pick and not overthink and just go for it. I usually get endings that I had no idea were coming, and that's the fun of it. It is okay to pull things from your favorite places. It can look a little fanficky sometimes, of like my one with the Lovecraftian abomination that falls into the well and shatters the prism of the main character's imagination. I actually pulled from Luca and had I had like one direct quote from Luca of "Silenzio Bruno" that this kid on a bicycle keeps saying as they whip through the town. So if I wanted to get this published, I would have to file off those serial numbers. But this is Flash under a timer crunch, so go for it. Just put it in. You can file off the serial numbers later. It can be a shorthand for the atmosphere and the character that you want, that you can develop more in editing. Just get it on the page. Use fan fiction for shorthand if you must, but just do it. Make sure your final sentence packs a punch. Either it can recontextualize the whole thing, it can just be the dramatic conclusion. Usually short, punchy sentences are the best. For one of my micro stories, it's about an astronaut whose helmet gets a crack in it in space, and the last line is just, "I am debris." Just wrap it up, summarize it. They are just debris in space. They are no longer a living, functioning, loving human who has emotions. They are just debris, and leave the reader empty. So that can be really fun. Sometimes I will leave it with the main character screaming at something that has occurred. Sometimes I will leave it with a final image that is like the car runs red. So something that is visceral, that is like, oof, I know what happened without having to explicitly say it. And my last subpoint for write the story is experiment, have fun, try second point of view, try to do a different tense. Try to use onomatopoeias if you don't usually use those. Try using countdowns in your story to help push things along and make it faster and make it as succinct as possible to move time along. Or to drag time out if it's literally like 5 seconds before a bomb explodes and have the thoughts racing in the character's head. Keep in mind, you are not writing a novel. This is not a novel commitment. This is a piece of flash fiction. You are not going to be dedicating the next 2 years of your life to this story. This is a half-hour, fast draft. You can do it, have fun, explore. You cannot break it. It's just a piece of fun flash fiction. And if you don't like it, write another one. It'll only take you another half hour. Writing flash is a great way to experiment for novels as well. I used it to write a flash piece about the plant lady that moves in on Nightmare Lane. And that piece actually got accepted into a charity anthology over in Australia called Wimbledon Common. So that's really fun. But that piece then exploded into a middle grade horror novel. So that experimentation I did of developing my villain and my main character and his little sister has expanded. So my climax, which was most of that story, is now my midpoint turn of my novel, and it gets even more crazy. So it's a fun way to experiment with characters, to experiment with different ways to describe things, to experiment with describing things with multiple senses, to experiment with point of view, to experiment with different types of main characters. Are they humanoid? Are they completely alien? Are they an animal? Have fun. Step 6. Read it out loud. You will find many things by reading it out loud. You'll find where sentences seem too long and you run out of breath while reading it. You will find things that are awkward to read and just like you can't quite parse through it. Highlight it for editing later. And my kryptonite, fix tense shifts. I have so many tense shifts when I first draft a flash fiction piece. There might also be point of view shifts from first to third and back and forth. Step 7, edit it. Go over the word choices that you have. Does each word seem to have enough weight behind it? Is there a stronger word that you could use for it? Something more visceral? Something more genre specific? Just go through word by word and see which ones you like. Pull out all the weak ones and just have fun with language. Is each sentence in the story needed? Or do you need to add one to add more color and texture and just light, like to add more to the story, to be able to feel things through the character's perspective, assuming you're not writing omniscient, but just like flavor things more through the mindset of your protagonist. So why are they noticing something? Describe, like if they're a fashion designer, describe the textures of the fabric and the cut of the dress and the pattern, and like just go into detail on what your specific character would focus on, not what you as the author would focus on. So that's always important, is filter through the lens of your character. What do they think is important? And weed out things that they don't think is important. I like to go through and talk about how the environment interacts with my main character. That's a great way to bring in the senses, is the plumes of dust around the feet of the characters as they walk barefoot through the ghost town. How the rain pelts off of the goosebumps on their arm. Just different things to add more description and break the monotony of like, I did this, I saw that. Start breaking it up with descriptions of the environment interacting with the character so that it matters, because it matters to the character because it's touching them, or they're seeing it, or they're smelling it. Not something happened in the distance that the character would never notice because they're focused on something close up. Because we don't have time for that. This is Flash. Make sure your final sentence has that punch or that twist or whatever you're going for. You can amp that up in revision. And also in this edit pass, file off those serial numbers if you have them. Make sure that you're not directly quoting Luca. Or that your character is not the actual Hannibal Lecter like he was in one of mine. But it was great for shorthand to give the ominous feeling of the character. So I would have to take out those names or those direct quotes and fill it in with my own. Step number 8, beta readers. So after you have done your editing pass, send it off to friends, have them read it, ask them, is it interesting? Are there any confusing sentences? Is the language too flowery or overcomplicated anywhere? Do they want more atmosphere? Is the ending impactful? Are there missed opportunities to add a sentence here or there to get you more into the head of the character or through the lens of the character? So a lot of times with my Flash, I like to know, is the ending impactful? Does it make sense? That kind of thing. Does it feel earned? If it feels unearned, I gotta go back and rework it a little bit. Step number 9, edit it again. Incorporate that beta reader feedback that you got. Make it as polished and as awesome as you can. Keep it within the word limits of whatever you're submitting it to. If you're not submitting it to anything, I challenge you to keep it under 1,000 words. Keep it a proper Flash. And step number 10, publish it, post it, share it. Whatever you're doing. There are many Flash fiction online anthologies, magazines that you can submit to. A lot of them actually do pay for your work, so that's nice. You can get publishing credits to help in your author bio for when you're trying to query your novel to get a literary agent. So this will help you get your publishing credentials up. And also it will help you to level up your writing as a whole with that fast turnaround of not having to spend years on a first draft, but just quick turnaround, quick edit. You get to write the end. You get that dopamine hit of, I finished something. Great, great stuff. So yeah, give it a shot. I hope you found this helpful. I have this all typed out of bullet points for this, so I may post the link for my bullet points down below. But yeah, don't forget to have fun. Writing is supposed to be fun. It is not a labor of pure dread and woe is me. You can do it. And if you have any questions, please leave them down below. I will be filming a second part to this where I will be writing a Flash and talking out my thought process as I write it. So it will be a long video because it will take me probably 40 minutes to write this one while I verbally spew out what my brain is trying to do as I type it. So that will be coming. But yes, subscribe, follow along, and I'll see you all later. Bye!